All right, let's move along here to Nate. Nate, of course, content creator for CLP and author of the blueprint to Crush Live Poker. And Module 8 will come out on January 1st. And then Module 9 will come out in a few weeks after that in January. Hello, Nate. You're up next.
Hey, what's up, Bart? How you doing?
How's it going, Nate? Nate, you got a hand for us here today?
Yeah, I actually have two, so I'm deciding between them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I know what we're doing.
These are both in private games or in a private game?
Yeah, in a private game. It's going to be 5-5-10, and we're 3,500 effective.
5-5-10 private game, 35. Is that, do you only play in private games now for the most part?
I still go to the casino to stay up on a 2-5
Mhm.
and sometimes win 3 streets just to
Yeah. Like me.
content.
Right. All right. So 5-5-10 private game, 3,500 effective. Okay.
All right, and we have red aces and +1.
All right. So hero in +1 with ace of diamonds, ace of hearts. Okay.
All right, we open the 35, cutoff calls, and the third blind calls.
So here are the 35 cutoff calls and the third blind calls. So it's a fixed 5-5-10, kind of a small private game, right? Well, I guess it depends on your area. So the pot's like 110.
Yes, 110 in the pot,
Okay.
and we get jack of spades, 9 of hearts, 6 of spades.
Jack of spades, 9 of hearts, 6 of spades. Hero with ace of diamonds, ace of hearts from +1 against the cutoff and the straddle. Okay, jack, 9, 6 with 2 spades.
Yep, and third blind checks to us,
Mm-hmm.
and it's on us.
So third blind checks, okay. Are you asking me what I would do?
Yeah, what size?
Well, again, one of the small stakes exploit. I mean, this is interesting because private game might actually play a lot like a good 2-5 game in a casino, just in the way that games are cultivated privately, which means that there's probably going to be a fair amount of recreational players in the game. Am I right about that, Nate? In this game?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just tend to do a way more larger volume of betting on boards that we might not even are supposed to bet a lot. I'm not even saying that this is one of those boards, but that is a very large exploit that we promote on Crush Live Poker. So I bet most boards with aces, like all necessarily, all but like probably the worst of boards. This one's connected and there are multiple draws out there. So I would probably go at least 2/3. I could even see going 100. And the only times that I would differ in a setup like that against weak players is if somehow somebody was capable, if I thought that checking to induce actually had more value than just straight up value betting. Obviously, multi-way theory says that you're supposed to go small. And I've definitely seen at the high stakes people check like a board like this a lot multi-way. I'm just saying that against this particular lineup, I wouldn't probably dream of checking, although your hand doesn't need a ton of protection. You don't have the ace of spades. So what did you do?
This is a very draw heavy board too, so I go 90 into 110 here.
Yeah. And again, that's exactly what I was thinking, as opposed to like betting like 40 or something, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then cutoff takes it to 250.
Ah, interesting.
And third blind folds.
So cutoff raises to 250. So you took a larger sizing here on the flop, although the absolute pot size is not that large, right? We're not talking about, remember, yes, he bet like whatever, 80, 90% of the pot. We're like, well, how does somebody raises an 80% to 90% pot size bet? Isn't that really strong? Well, the answer is it depends on actually what the fixed bet size was. The smaller the pot size, the less the percentage of the pot bet means. And then the larger the pot size, I would say that it's actually kind of the same thing. It's just that the more the actual bet size means as opposed to the percentage of the pot. It's actually the same way, just in opposite ways, smaller or larger. So 290, I mean, they got 90 to 250. I mean, what is out there in terms of two pair, like Jack 9, 9, 6? I mean, there are very, very specific players where I've actually made bet folds but that is a very, very extreme situation with a hand as good as ace, simply because you're not always behind, and then you have equity against 2 pair, right? Anyways,
Right.
so I think it's way too tight to even consider folding. In other scenarios too, probably not this scenario because you use such a large sizing, you might even have some bet 3 bets. Those are usually in shallower stack scenarios and usually when you bet smaller on the flop, I would say.
Yeah, so I went into the tank here not thinking about folding, but about 3 betting and raising here. He goes with a small size, and the board is very draw heavy. And I also feel like he could have some raises with like top pair that he's planning on just checking back turn a fair amount as well, like some stop raises. So I was contemplating 3 betting the flop, but I just called though.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to do that a lot here too. I just think that it starts to get a little bit weird if you 3-bet the flop and get called. Now you might say, well, then if he always just calls, I know he has a draw. I mean, these are massive exploits. Like, I'll tell you something that could be absolutely massive, just so people can understand the thinking. You could 3-bet fold the flop. You could 3-bet fold the flop if you were to really say that he's just going to jam back with sets in 2 pair and he's going to call with draws. Then the play would be to 3-bet fold the flop. 3-bet fold, what I mean is a raise fold, right? We don't have the luxury of necessarily knowing that, but that gets you the thinking behind like a certain scenario. So here at a 90, cutoff raise is 250, hero calls. And also too, so the pot's now 610. Depending on the texture of the card, and depending on his bet size or check back, a lot of times people will, whenever you're in this situation, a lot of players will tend to telegraph the strength of when you're in a situation where you're not sure, you have a strong hand, but you're not sure if your hand is good. A lot of times at this level, players will tend to telegraph the strength of their hand based upon their turn sizing, whether it's in or out of position. This is where the whole like same bet type of thing comes in. Like, even this guy's in position. We usually talk about same bet when you get check raised from out of position, but say like the turn's like an offsuit deuce and you check and he bets like 200 on the turn. Like, that's such a bet to get to showdown that you have to kind of try to figure out, well, how do I want to play this? Like, if the turn's an offsuit deuce and the guy bets 200, do I want to make some sort of crazy check raise for on the turn with 1 pair? Do I want to call and do what I like to call an upfront bet, which is basically just call and blast a dry river? I've done that. The problem with sometimes doing that is that you're just gambling on, there's a lot of action killing cards. Of course, the guy has to he has to make that same bet on the turn. We don't know what he's going to do yet. So the pot's 610 now on Jack of Spades, 9 of Hearts, 6 of Spades. Okay.
Right, and we get the 2 of Hearts on the turn.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go. I said 2 of Clubs, 2 of Hearts. Okay. Yeah.
And I do something interesting here. I don't check.
Okay.
So with the thought that he could be raising a lot of draws and have some stop raises, I decided that when I decided not to 3-bet, I thought I could lead certain turn cards, and especially this card that puts even more draws to the board.
And I assume these are massive, massive live node locks that you are going to lead fold, I assume. Is that
Yes.
the type of player? So basically what you're saying is you basically almost were playing, you could say like an unorthodox, like little stop and go, where you get a clean turn, you're going to come out and bet here again, and you're basically saying if he raises, he always has better than 2 pair, but he's going to call with a lot of draws, and you still think he'll call with the showdown portion of his sort of stop raising range, like Jack X.
Right, exactly.
Well, if I were to take this type of line with that, I would probably go pretty large here.
Yeah, and that's what I do. I go 750.
What, 750? Wow.
Yeah.
The only thing about that, Nate, is that does that start to fold out some of those like showdown stop raises though? I mean, maybe it's a player dependent thing that you did, but.
So I felt like it was 2 things. The draws are calling, and then if he has the value sections of those hands, it can look like I have a draw and I just want to bluff at it. That was my thought, that he would still look me up once and like evaluate the river.
So let me ask you the other question here too, is there ever a size here that ever sort of scares the villain and he just calls with better with like Jack 9 or something like that, as opposed to raise? Not that that necessarily means that. I mean, not that that really matters. I just at a certain point.
Yeah, for sure. Like if I go like 1,000 here, he's probably just calling like range for sure.
Mm.
Like that's like really big, right? But like $750 bets happen in this game, so it's not like crazy.
So you again, for this size to be correct, you need to have him call with the weaker portion of his showdown stop raising range and also continue to call withdraw. Right?
Right.
Okay. All right. So you bet 750 and
He calls.
so call what do you I even lost track of the position. Cut off calls. Now what's interesting here is that now the pot is 2110. Obviously, like there aren't that many I mean, there aren't a ton of blanks, like unless you're just going to see like an offsuit 3 or like the deuce pair or something like that. It's jack of spades, 9 of hearts, 6 of spades, turns the deuce of hearts. There's front door spades. There's backdoor hearts. Because now I was going to say, like, if you had sort of played this standard and he had checked and you checked the turn, right, and he checked it behind, you're going to like bet probably very, very large on rivers that are bricks, with aces for value. Now, if you do get a brick and he didn't raise the turn and you thought that he was going to raise with 2 pair plus, there's no reason not to go for value. I guess it's just the question is what type of sizing. And then you might get some sticky. I mean, there's a lot of cards here. They're a little bit sticky, although the backdoor heart, you have aces with the ace of hearts. I don't think the ace of hearts really matters. The backdoor heart, except the fact that he can't have like ace jack of hearts. The backdoor hearts probably don't mean as much unless he was raising with like queen 10 of hearts. I think it would be more of like front door spades that would be obviously troublesome. And any card that's sort of in between a 6 to a king can potentially be problematic for you. That's a lot of cards.
Yeah, right, no doubt.
Yeah. All right. So 2110 to the river.
Yeah, 2110 to the river, and we get the king of diamonds.
Okay. So the king of diamonds. King of diamonds here comes at the end. I'm kind of like scrunching my brow here because one of the hand, if you were to say like, what is the most likely hand? What is the most likely hand that is stop raised on the flop that has some showdown value? In this exact setup, when we hold aces, what is the most likely hand that the guy's going to show up with? It's king jack. Just because we have aces, we've got aces in our hand, so it's less likely, right, that it's ace jack. Queen 10 comes in, and I think now you don't get called by just jack X as much now, right? So it's bad for you to get value from jack X. You lose to king jack, and that might make this a check and evaluate. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's check fold if you think the guy's crazy and he's just going to bluff off busted spades. But when you put all that stuff together, that you're not going to get called as much by just a single pair jack X, then, I mean, obviously, like if the river was an offsuit 3, you'd have a value bet all day. But here, it's unfortunate that this card comes out, which is an overcard here to a jack.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with like basically everything you just said, and I do check here.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like you can't get value from a jack. Maybe you can get a bluff, pick off a bluff or something, but we want to evaluate and see what he does, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he pushes forward all the chips in his stack that he's not shuffling in his other hand, which is about 2K.
Wow. So all in for kind of all in.
Well, no, he left like 500 behind.
Okay. All right. So he bets 2K.
Bets like 2K, yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, Nate. Like, I mean, you can tell me more about this guy, but for the most part, you get protected here by the fact that somebody isn't going to turn jack X here into a bluff a lot. So, or like a hand, I mean, and also too, like something like 9-10 of spades. Like, say he had 9x of spades here and you played this line and you check to him. For the most part, he's going to lose, right? For the most part, with 9x of spades. But a lot of times you get protected just by strength of player and that people don't turn pairs into bluffs enough. So if somebody's not going to bet 9x of spades here as a bluff, I can more safely fold here to this bet. And it's going to be like king jack, queen 10, king 9 of spades, right? Something like that, which is 2 pair, you know. But if somebody's capable of turning certain hands into bluffs, then the other thing too is that like of the hands that like he just totally whiffed on, remember, like if he had like king queen of spades, right? That's top pair. So that's not going to do that, right? King queen of spades, if you flat with that. King 10 of spades, those hands aren't going to show up like this, right? So take out the king queen of spades and the king 10 of spades, which are combo draws on the flop. So then you're kind of left with what, 10-8 of spades and 7-8 of spades, which are the hands that might play it this way and are able to call your 750 on turn. So, and then if you say, again, there's a lot of assumptions here. If he's not bluffing 9x of spades, I don't know if it's that many combos that get here like this that are just purely like nothing. And you don't even know if 7-8 of spades as played like this way is going to bluff at the end that much. So I think for those reasons, I don't know if I can hero unless you have some other reason for it against this guy.
Well, I know he likes to put big chunky bluffs in,
Mm-hmm.
but I wish I would have thought about it a little deeper and eliminated some of the bluff combos like we just did right here.
Yeah.
Because I agree that he just doesn't have as many spade combos as I think I gave him in real time.
Yeah.
So I end up putting in the call here.
Wow. Because my gut reaction was to fold. I mean, there might be other things, other dynamics going on here in private games. So hero calls. Okay. Now let me ask you before you give a reveal though, like, is this a type of guy that you think would ever show up here with like 9-10 of spades or ace-9 of spades here as a bluff?
He can definitely turn his 9x into a bluff for sure.
Well, that makes it closer then, isn't it? But the only 9x he's going to have is spades, right?
Yeah, he also has a watch that I thought was like the price of my car. Found out it's actually the price of my house, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So several $100,000, you mean?
Yeah, it's like a $500,000 watch.
I mean, so that doesn't necessarily mean. What's interesting about that, I mean, a lot of viewers aren't going to really ever come up against this, but if you watch Hustler Casino live, there are different types of quote unquote rich guys. There are guys that like to move their chips around, but then there are other guys that don't. Just because they have a lot of money, it doesn't necessarily mean they bluff either. You know, you can't just say that just because a guy has a lot of money because he's wearing like a couple $100,000 watch means that he's gonna bluff more frequently than somebody else. You know, because the money doesn't mean anything to him. It's not necessarily the easiest tell, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so you call and
he has King Jack of Hearts.
King Jack of Hearts. Wow.
Yeah. Which I was shocked that he didn't get more aggressive with the King Jack of Hearts when I put a big ass bet in.
Really? On the turn?
I mean, he's got top pair, flush draw.
Well, if he knew that you were going to bet fold aces, then sure, the play for him is to jam. But obviously, he doesn't know that, right? I mean, I think that it's interesting. If I had king, so you were 100% spot on with what he was doing on the flop, right?
Yeah,
he was stop raising with showdown. He turned the world. So, but you're saying that even if the turn was like the deuce of clubs, he still would have called the 750 though? Because that was my concern with your sizing on the turn.
I'm pretty sure he's looking me up with regardless if he picks up the flush draw or not.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Nate.
No problem.
I appreciate it.